In the deep winters of northern Canada, there are stories the cold refuses to bury. Stories of people who vanished without a trace, of families destroyed, of voices in the night calling from the tree line. These aren't campfire tales, they're documented cases, police files, court records, missionary journals, each pointing to the same terrifying belief: a hunger that walks, a spirit that possesses, a madness that spreads through local isolation and starvation. They called it the Wendigo, and for some, it isn't just a legend, it was the last thing they ever saw. Thank you for watching Rick's Storyverse. Tonight, we step into the frozen past, where three true stories reveal how belief, hunger, and fear can turn winter into something predatory. The northern forests of Alberta and Manitoba have always carried their own kind of silence, one that feels older than the land itself. For generations, Indigenous communities warned of a spirit born from starvation and greed, a being that could hollow out a person until nothing human remained. Outsiders called it folklore, but history tells a different story. Our first case begins in the winter of 1878 with a Cree man named Swift Runner. He was a hunter, a guide, a man trusted by his community, but that winter was brutal. Food was scarce, temperatures plunged, and something in Swift Runner began to change. He claimed a voice called to him from the forest, whispering hunger into his dreams. By spring, the Northwest Mounted Police found the remains of his wife and children at a remote camp. Swift Runner confessed, not just to killing them, but to feeling consumed by a force he could not fight. He said the Wendigo had taken hold of him. His case is one of the earliest documented examples of what would later be called Wendigo psychosis. But Swift Runner wasn't the only one. 3 decades later, in 1907, the RCMP arrested an OG Cree shaman named Jack Fiddler. Fiddler was known in his community as a healer, a man who could confront spiritual threats. He claimed he had defeated 14 Wendigos in his lifetime. Some were people who had already turned, others were believed to be on the brink of transformation. One of the cases involved a woman who had stopped eating, stopped speaking, and began showing signs her family recognized from generations of oral history. They believed she was becoming a Wendigo. Fiddler performed what he saw as a mercy killing, but to the Canadian government, it was murder. His arrest became one of the most controversial cultural clashes in early Canadian legal history. Fiddler died in custody before his trial concluded. These cases weren't isolated. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, missionaries, traders, and doctors documented a pattern they didn't understand. Men who fled into the woods, claiming they were turning into monsters. Women who refused food because they feared their hunger would drive them to kill. Entire families who reported hearing voices calling them from the tree line during the coldest nights. These accounts became known as Wendigo psychosis, a culture-bound syndrome rooted in starvation, isolation, and the terror of losing oneself. One missionary wrote of a man who tied himself to a tree for fear he would harm his family. Another recorded a hunter who begged to be restrained after dreaming of eating human flesh. These weren't stories told around fires. They were written in journals, signed, dated, and preserved. What ties all three cases together is not a creature stalking the woods, but the power of belief and the brutal reality of northern winters. When temperatures drop to 40 below and food runs out, the mind becomes a fragile thing. Fear grows teeth. hunger becomes a voice, and in communities where the Wendigo was more than a myth, that fear could become fatal. Swiftrunner believed he was possessed. Jack Fiddler believed he was protecting his people, and those who suffered Wendigo psychosis believed they were losing their humanity. Whether the spirit itself exists is a question no document can answer, but the consequences of believing in it carved into Canadian history. Even today, in the quietest parts of the boreal forest, some say the old stories still linger, not as monsters in the dark, but as warnings carried out on the wind, reminders of how thin the line between survival and something far colder. I'd like to end this story with a poem, and here's the poem. The winter keeps its secrets where the starving shadows go, and history holds the echoes of the tales the elders know. A hunger born of silence can unmake the strongest mind, and those who walk the frozen path leave warmer worlds behind. The Wendigo is whispered where the firelight grows thin, a warning carved in memory of the cold that creeps within. 3 stories etched in a snowfall, each a truth the past won't hide, of men who faced the darkness with no warmth left inside. So heed the ancient teachings when the northern light grows slow, for fear becomes a doorway when the winter starts to grow. And those who hear it calling from the woods where cold winds blow may learn how real the legend feels when hunger walks below. It's another story from the edge of night. Please like and subscribe to keep the torch alight. Good night.